special guest tonight. We're really lucky to get this guy. He is a podcast legend around here.
Legend, yeah.
A radio legend as well. 20 years going back to starting at CFOX, and about 6-7 years now in the podcasting world. Really excited to welcome in Todd Hancock from the Toddcast Podcast. Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Right on, Darren. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I miss hearing your pipes on the radio. I listened to you 5 days a week for like 14 years, and all of a sudden you were gone. And,
I know. And they never gave me a chance to say goodbye. And so many of my friends, for like months after I got let go, I was getting text messages saying like, dude, you have like the longest summer break known to man. I'm like, no, I got let go. So it was like, it took months and months for people to even realize I wasn't there anymore.
Wow. Yeah, that's the brutal side of radio. I worked in radio, television, and media, and boom, all of a sudden they just walk in and they just say, see you later. They don't give you any warning. We saw it recently with 1040, and all of a sudden that station just went to comedy and didn't give anybody an opportunity to say goodbye or anything. It was really rough.
It's just odd too, because especially considering that they were actually doing better in the ratings than the other sports station 650. So it's not like that they were, struggling to get ratings and get revenue from a rate card. Like you said, that's just radio. Like that was the first time for me in almost 20 years that I got fired from a radio job, but that's just the job, and now of course I can look back and go like, okay, cool. Well, now I will take my life today more than I would have ever at CFOX. Now I've got the podcast. I can interview anybody I want. I can do anything I want. I've got a ton of sponsors because of the Toddcast, BCIT, Radio Arts, the radio course there. They asked me to be an instructor there. And it's not because of my time at CFOX. It was because of doing the podcast and the springboarding from that, right? So who would have thought that losing the afternoon show at CFOX would have been a good career move? But it is, and it was.
Well, I'm so glad that you had that severance pay, and then you had that opportunity to sort of take some time off, be with the family, and then, talk to some people. And, I heard you spoke to a couple people and they sort of suggested the podcasting world. And back then podcasting wasn't a big thing. It was sort of an unknown world. But you were convinced that, hey, I could probably pull this off, and you have.
Yeah, I mean, that was like you said, the severance was a godsend, right? Because it was one of those like, holy crap! If I didn't have that, I probably would be in like Lethbridge or Kamloops or something, right? But because of the time that I had at CFOX, almost 15 years, I was there from 99 to 2014. And because of that, and because I was smart enough when I initially got the job there, I wrote it in the contract, severance pay, and it was more than what the government has mandated and all that, right? So I had almost a full year to kind of, like you say, I took time off. And at that time, I had like 2 little kids. I had a 4-year-old and I had a 2-year-old who are now 11 and 8. It's crazy. But yeah, so I took the summer off and I really didn't do anything. I didn't kick the dirt. I wasn't looking for a job. I got offered a few jobs in the industry, and I said no to all of them. I just wasn't interested in getting back into the game right away. But then, like you say, I had enough friends that were like, do you really need to go back to radio? Could you do, a podcast and get somebody to sponsor you as opposed to sponsoring the station? And the trickle down will be, of course, to you and everybody else. So long story short, unless you want it long story short, I knew enough owners and GMs and what have you of businesses in town, whether it's a beer company or strip clubs or whatever, like nightclubs or anything, right? So I just reached out to all of them, and yeah, they were all super supportive. I got on right away. The Hard Rock Casino Vancouver was my title sponsor. So Toddcast brought to you by the Hard Rock. And because of that, it was like, boom, as soon as I got those guys on, it was just shooting fish in a barrel at that point. It was like, talk to Donnelly Group, talk to the Granville Entertainment, talk to Red Truck Beer. And Milano Coffee and all these companies, and they were all on board. And, I want to jinx myself, but the majority of the sponsors, even from 7 years ago, are still sponsoring me today.
Wow. Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, most DJs, they're going to look for opportunities at other rock radio stations that have been there.
Oh, sure.
I'm really glad that you knew that you had an opportunity here, because you had made a lot of friends in the industry, and you had hosted a lot of CD release parties. You had, went to the Roxy and the Seeds, and you had been at so many of these places and got to know the GMs and the managers and the owners and stuff. So you could reach out and say, hey, I $100 a week. Can you afford to do that advertising with me?
Right.
That's really unique and great that you had that opportunity.
No, for sure. And the majority of the people that I knew in radio, at the time, they were just expecting me to go back to being mornings or afternoons at a station and wherever, and just continue to do what I know. But again, that severance gave me enough time to really research podcasting and kind of dig in and find if there was a way for me to do that as opposed to. And it's been a pretty crazy ride, I got to admit. Like, the first couple of years were very dicey. I lost that title sponsorship within the first 4 months. They jumped on for 4 months and then they jumped off right away.
Wow.
So suddenly, I was making big money from the Hard Rock out of the gate. And to lose that, I was like, oh man, maybe I should just go back to being that afternoon guy at a rock station in Kelowna. Like, but I just put my head down and persevered and just, sent out a bunch of emails, and I went for coffees and business lunches and golfing and all that shit. And I just didn't take no for an answer, basically.
Nice. Well, I bet you kind of hate that part of the business though. So that must have been a little bit challenging, but I guess, you're just being social. You're just sort of connecting with people and
hate which part? Like the sales part?
Yeah. Do you hate that?
It's not that I hate it. It's not, it's just, spare a little change. You feel like you're almost busking, right? Even though I do offer a pretty good service, like, you'll reach a bunch of people and you'll be tied to a bunch of really cool band names and sports figures and entertainers and stuff like that. And, even though I do offer a product, it still kind of feels that way. Like, I wish that I had somebody to do the sales part of the podcast as opposed to me banging down doors all the time. But it's not that I hate it. It's just something that I was very unfamiliar with. And at this point now, 7 years in, bring it. Now I'm just like, I'm totally comfortable with it. Still feels weird to ask people for money though.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I think that gave you a really big leg up was that you booked a lot of your bands, didn't you? The ones that you were going to do interviews with, you booked a lot of those people. So you already had some connections to the management companies.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like, you mean for CFOX? Yeah. I mean, I probably booked, because I did the rock report, right? So it was the music news, the interview channel on CFOX. So I wanted to be that person booking the bands. Like, I wanted to have that hands-on with the record label or the tracker or whoever, so that so I wouldn't have to have a middleman. I wouldn't have to like, hey, promotions department, can you please call that person? I just wanted to be able to do it. And yeah, thankfully, because of that, 7 years in, dude, like I never, ever stress about getting a music guest on, and all of my music guests are big artists.
Yeah.
And that's because of working at CFOX. It's tricky because I have 3 guests a week on the podcast. It's trickier for me to get really good sporting guests. I just don't know that. I don't know that world as well as I know music. Same thing for entertainment, right? But that's just, you'll be surprised at how many people will say yes to an interview just with a tweet. Hey man, I'm a fan of your work. Any chance you can give me 15, 20 minutes of your time?
Yeah.
I would say probably 70% of the time I get a yes.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, but the music part, yeah, you're right. Like, thankfully, I was the person booking probably 90% of the bands you heard on my show and on the Rock Report. It was me booking them. So thankfully I did that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful too, because you were a guy that interviewed all of my favorite artists. You were able to bring on so many of the artists that I wished I could be talking to as well.
Which guys did you
Well, I just absolutely always loved Foo Fighters, huge band. I mean, you have you have so many, you were able to just reach and just talk to all the bands that were coming through town, were releasing albums. It was just always just such a treat to listen to that Rock Report or the afternoon show, because I knew I was going to hear you talk to somebody that I really liked, and I really wanted to hear the insight you were able to get.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky in that regard. Like, my kids, now that they're getting into music themselves, like, I'll show pictures of, like, Kings of Leon and like Zakk Wylde and Foo Fighters and Chili Peppers and all this, and they're just blown away that their dad used to be that person, right? Yeah, super. I look back on my time in radio, I'm certainly not bitter at all. Like I said, I'll take my life today before I would as a radio guy. I get summers off from BCIT. I couldn't take more than a week off at a time when I was at CFOX.
Right.
So yeah, I was certainly like literally name a rock band in the 2000s, 2010s. And chances are I probably talked to somebody from that band, Linkin Park, and like big bands, right? Megadeth, Metallica, emceed Metallica in the round at I was going to say Rogers Arena. At the time it was GM Place. But like, my legs are fucking, my legs are shaking. It's like Metallica is one of my favorite bands of all time. And here I'm introducing them in a 20,000 seat arena. It's just mind blowing stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me, I had a conversation with a gentleman. Do you know Lyle Chassé?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Good buddies.
Yeah. Well, he told me 25 years ago, maybe, that his ultimate dream was to produce a Metallica concert. Right. And I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. I hope you get to do that. And a few years later, I get a call. I'm going down to Thunderbird Stadium, and he's producing the Metallica show down there. And it was like, amazing. Hey, we sat there, had a beer, and you told me this is what you want to do, and you've done it. This is phenomenal. And so Metallica.
Lyle's a good guy. Now, for people that don't know Lyle beyond that story, Lyle used to, if you remember, the Power Drive, I think it was called, right? On CFOX back in the day, was Rob and Lyle. Well, that was the Lyle that Darren was talking about. He's groundbreaking. He's a really good guy. He's a solid guy. They were interviewing bands that like weren't even getting a sniff at CFOX at the time, like Metallica. I think this is back in like the early 90s. So early 90s, early 90s, and it would be like Tool and like they were doing stuff that was unheard of in Canadian radio. Yeah, I mean, Lyle's a freaking legend.
Oh yeah, he is a legend. Yeah,
great guy.
Yeah, speaking of that, you must miss so much of the camaraderie that you had at the station, though. You had a co-host, Karen Kay was with you.
Oh yeah.
Years. You must miss that part of it, because podcasting, you're at home, you're by yourself. You get to do these Zoom calls and that. But do you miss a lot of those people?
Of course. I miss them, but Karen was off the show for probably 4 years when I got let go, because she got moved to the morning show without any word. Like, they weren't like, hey, you guys, are you cool with going to the mornings? It was like, Karen's going to the mornings, you're doing afternoons on your own. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's the way it is. But yeah, man, I miss those guys, sure, but who I miss more? I miss the listeners more. I miss the people that would call up every single day. And there was like probably 15, 20, 30 people every day would be call up, and like you'd start to recognize their voice. Hey, what's going on, Dave? Right on. Good to hear from you. Like, there's going to be Larry's calling up with a crazy Canuck story. That's the stuff I miss. Like, nothing against, O'Neill and Karen Kay and Scotty and all those guys. Like, sure, I miss seeing them. They're family forever. But I miss the listeners more than I miss the DJs by a landslide. It's not even close.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine. Yeah. That's, that it was a following, like I said, I listened to it 5 days a week, and, I all of a sudden just boom, you're out of our lives. And it was tough. It was hard. You get used to someone, you love what they do. And, all of a sudden the radio station decides to change course like that. It was shocking because I always felt like you were sort of number one in the
I was killing, dude.
slot,
I was killing everybody in the afternoons. It wasn't a matter of performance. I just was making way too much money because prior to doing the afternoon show, I was doing the morning show with Jeff, right? Jeff and Biff Naked. So I was making pretty good money doing the morning show. And when I got moved to the afternoons, they didn't really kill my wage that much. Like, they did cut probably 20-30% off, but I was still making a lot of money, right? Sure. So that's why, ultimately I got let go because I just was making too much money.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. Like, dude, I did the afternoon show from 2002 to 2014, like 12 years. You hear the same guy. So I totally get it. It's a shame. Like that's probably the only thing I didn't like about my time at CFOX was how it ended. Like, just give me a day to wrap it up.
Yeah.
But they knew they couldn't do that because that would be bad for them, bad business to let their listener know that their long time afternoon guy's gone. They would never have done that. So that's why I wasn't given the chance, because that would be bad business for them.
I also think that they're worried about somebody going postal.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, we both went to BCIT. I think you graduated a few years before I did. What a great tool to use some knowledge and some ability to connect with the people out there. I went on a broadcasting tour that's part of that whole package, and we went to all these little towns around BC, and I was shocked at how little money all of these stations had. And I thought, do I want to be at a station like that when they're pinching every penny? They're trying to make you do 3 or 4 jobs, and it didn't appeal to me. How was your experience when you went to these small towns and did radio there?
Yeah. My first job was in Smithers.
Okay.
Like what, 5,000, 7,000? I don't even know. It's small, under 10,000 for sure, even still today. And of course, I went there in like 97. So, right. 25 years ago. It was what I wanted to do, right? I wanted to be that person on the air. I wanted to entertain people and hear music and like MC shows. Well, I didn't get to do any of that shit in Smithers, but I wasn't there very long, like maybe 3 months. And I had a really bad experience because the GM didn't like me and he made me toe the line. Yeah. But within the same company at the time, it was a company called Caribou Central Interior Radio, CCIR. Okay. And their flagship was the stations in Prince George. Well, the evening show at the rock station came open, and Smithers was more like all over the map. Like, it would play 3 days or Third Eye Blind into like Gordon Lightfoot. Crazy stuff, right?
Wow. Bizarre.
So when the evening show came open, I begged and pleaded and kicked and screamed, and I got that job. And all the stuff I was getting in trouble for in Smithers, suddenly I'm getting pats on the back in the hallway in Prince George, like, nice break. I heard you do that. Keep pushing buttons, get people talking and engage your audience, blah, blah, blah. So hated Smithers, loved the town, hated the job, only because the GM was he wasn't a nice guy at all. But once I got to Prince George, man, it was fun from the get-go. It was one of those, like, without Prince George, without Gary Russell and Darren Coogan, my first 2 PDs there, I probably wouldn't have made it to Vancouver.
Wow.
Because they were very like, try stuff, like wipe out on the air, pick yourself up, dust off, and like,
nice. Wow.
And go again. Right. So, yeah, I got nothing but great things to say about small towns. And like, yeah, sure, I wasn't making very good money, dude. It was dog food. Like I was, Ichiban and like KD. Those were the choices, right? But I had the best job in the city. Yeah, I made shit wages, but once I got to CFOX, strap a rocket on your back. Once you get to major market, man, holy crap! If your mornings are drive, they'll pay you.
Yeah, that's really great.
But yeah, man, I got nothing but great things is like that. I still today, I mean, yeah, now I'm one of the instructors at BCIT's radio course, right? And I always preach to the students, like, get out to small market, cut your teeth, make mistakes, make the crazy garbage wage that you have to take another part-time job to squeak by. But all that stuff, it just is going to make you better. So yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about small markets for sure.
So was CFOX your ultimate goal? Had you set that? Yeah, CFOX was your ultimate goal. Did you have any goals set past that, or was that sort of where you thought that was the?
No, that was the pinnacle for me. Like once I got to CFOX and I was there for a few years, I thought like, well, maybe I should try to get a job in like a bigger US market. Maybe I should try to get a job in LA. And Karen and I sent out a few packages and tried to make that happen. And it just didn't. Right. But yeah, no, I mean, that was it's funny you say that, because I just found with another instructor at BCIT, we're going through old boxes and stuff and kind of, recycling and getting rid of old stuff. And we came across one of those like yearbooks of the radio yearbook. And sure enough, we find mine. And I'm just such a little kid, right? It's like a punk kid.
Unreal.
But, they're like, what's your goals? Short-term, long-term. My short-term goal was like, just to get in industry. Long-term was, I want to be CFOX afternoons within 10 years. And I was mornings within 5.
Awesome.
So yeah, and CFOX was always, I grew up here, right? I grew up in Surrey and, till grade 4, grade 3, halfway through grade 3. But it was the station, right? It was always the station. Even in where I grew up for grade 9 through 21 years old, in the Okanagan in Summerland, there's the repeater station, so you can get CFOX on cable FM, right? So even in Summerland, you go to a house party and it's not Magic FM, it's not the Penticton station, it's CFOX, it's Rock 101, right? So even as a kid, like growing up, 15, 16, 17 years old, like CFOX was always my station, even though I didn't live here. So yeah, man.
Cool.
Like, believe me, when I got that job offer, man, I was fucking over the moon, dude.
Yeah. It would have been probably one of the best days of your life, I'm sure, right?
Hands down, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When did CFOX start putting that moniker on world famous CFOX? Would you remember that date and who made that decision? Because it was suddenly I started hearing world famous. I'm like, okay, yeah, I think it is, but
I don't know that it is, but I think it was probably around 2010, 2012. Something like that. It was a couple years before I got let go for sure. And, to be completely honest and frank, all of the jocks were like, this is stupid. Because we're not world famous. We're not K-Rock in LA. Like, that's world famous. So, and who implemented it? Couldn't tell you. No idea. But yeah, there was pushback from the jocks right out of the gate, because we're like, we get it. Like, if you want to put it on an ID, a station ID, like a splitter in between songs, go nuts. Right. But if you want me to backsell like 99.3 the Fox, world famous CFOX, like, I don't know, man, when you're cool, you don't need to announce it.
True.
Right? Like, you don't need to say you're world famous if you're world famous.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was some issue. There was some pushback out of the gate, but I honestly now, I mean, it's been 7 years. I have no idea. I'm sure they've probably now embraced it and they're, Yeah, we high-fiving in the hall. We are world famous. Like, you say it enough, you start to believe it, I guess. But
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting thing when you're not world famous. Like, why say you are? You're not.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
You're gonna tell me somebody in New Zealand knows CFOX? No, they don't.
Right. True. After leaving CFOX, hitting this podcast, what has been your favorite interview that you've done for the Toddcast podcast?
Wow, dude. Oh man.
Name
I don't know. There's
three.
way too many. Like, dude,
Yeah.
I've probably done 700, 800 interviews.
Yeah. I see there you got about 250 episodes loaded up.
3 guests a week.
Yeah, it's amazing, eh?
Yeah. So I don't know, man. That's a really tough question. There's so many like really good musicians that I've talked to over the years. I've got Zach Wild coming up again. Went to Chad Kruger's place, hung out with him for about an hour and crashed over at his house and banged on his drums and played some pool and shit. That was pretty fun. I don't know. It's tough. That's a tough question. I talked to Commander Hadfield, Canada's first spacewalker.
Awesome.
That was pretty awesome.
That's really neat.
I'm a huge fight fan, right? So I love talking to MMA fighters, UFC, Bellator. I don't know. That's a tough one, man. Lou Temple was a really good chat. He's an actor that you've seen on like tons of the Rob Zombie films and like what else? He's done some of the what's the zombie show again? The Walking Dead. He's in that for a couple seasons. He's a great guy. I don't know, man. It's a really tough question. Holy crap. I wish I had the list in front of me to kind of go through, but man, too many to mention, really.
I do love that you do now you touch into music, sports, and lifestyle entertainment. It's been great. I loved your interview with Kim Coates.
Yes.
That was one of the best ones I've ever heard. You do such a great job. You really, really, really do such a great job. I love your style. I love the way that you engage with the people, and you definitely know how to just entertain by having a conversation. It's really great.
Oh, it's really nice, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, and Kim, there's another one, right? Sons of Anarchy, and like, Kim Coates is such a huge star, and for him to be, and that's one I wish I had it zoomed, but for him to be the way that he was, so open and forthright, and there's something about doing podcast interviews as opposed to radio interviews, right? Like podcasts, you can kind of go train of thought and what are you binge watching, and like just shit that you wouldn't ask normally. Like, if I'm talking to Ozzy Osbourne at a radio station, I'm probably talking to him about the show that's coming up, the album that he's releasing, and maybe a couple oddball questions. Well, with the podcast, I'm like, what are you binge watching, buddy? Like, what's your favorite sport to watch? What's your favorite sport to play? Like, are you a gambler? That kind of shit, right? Like, have you ever had a near-death story, like where you almost died? That's stuff I wouldn't generally ask in a radio interview. Maybe I would now. If I went back to radio, I might now. I've definitely changed the way that I think about entertaining.
Cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm glad. The interview you did with Alice in Chains, where you just decided to do all Canadiana.
Oh yeah.
It's something that I'll never forget. Alice in Chains were always one of my favorite bands, and it was really great that you got all 4 of them together and you were just firing Canadian questions to them. And they ended up having a lot of fun. It was really cool.
That was Deer Lake Park, and I was at CFOX then. Nice. And I remember singing the national anthem to like whatever it holds there, 7,000-8,000 people, and they're all singing along with me, man. That's like, I just put the hair on my arm just stood up. Like, that for me is one of my favorite memories of working at CFOX was that interview, being backstage with them, because it was also like I Mother Earth, and who else was on that show? It was such.
I was there that day. I was there that day, and that
was such a You remember me singing the national anthem?
I do, of course. Yeah, that's phenomenal. Yeah,
It was such a fun day. Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, and I have had on William Duvall, the new singer. I guess not new. Fuck, he's been with them forever now. But William's been on. It's probably about an hour long chat with him. So if you're a fan of that band, you might want to check that out.
I will. Yeah, I definitely will.
Yeah.
I know you said we're a little pressed for time.
I just texted. I'm good till 9. I got you for 15 more.
Okay, awesome. Great to hear. Okay, do you still have a bucket list of people that you want to talk to?
Oh God, yeah, all the time, man. Yeah, all the time. I mean, if I could, I think the biggest one for me would be Jimmy Page.
Okay.
If I could talk to Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, John Paul Jones.
You see my shirt?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. I see your Stairway to Heaven poster in the behind you.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin was always my favorite band, and I don't think any artist will ever surpass my love of Led Zeppelin and what those guys did. So
yeah.
Have you ever reached out to them and asked Jimmy Page or if for anything? Have you ever even attempted?
Yeah, I mean, I've reached out to the record label and been like, hey, if there's anything, but it's like they don't tour, they don't put music out. So it's like, it's really, really hard. Dude, I don't think Joe Rogan could get a member.
Right.
So that, of course, like for me, it's just all like big artists are always on my list, right? Like if I could talk to Paul McCartney, fuck, how crazy would that be? That would be insane. Sammy Hagar is another one that I would love to talk to. I just love that guy's vibe. And Diamond Dave would be awesome. Somebody from Metallica. I have talked to guys from Metallica, but I'm not on my podcast. I did a world album premiere with Lars Ulrich, right? But to try to get him on this podcast, another story, right? And I have tried to get them on, but it's tough, man. Sometimes it's just, it's luck sometimes, and persistence. I'm a very like, please until thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're also a big sports lover. You mentioned totally. MMA, but tell me, who are your sports teams? Obviously, being local here, Canucks, Lions, Whitecaps, all that kind of thing. But do you have other teams in other major sports that you're fans of?
Not really, no. I mean, for me, it's the Canucks are number one. And once the Canucks are not in the running anymore for the Cup, I like completely zone out. I'll maybe go to a buddy's place and have a beer and watch a game or whatever, but I couldn't care less who wins. So yeah, it's the Canucks for me are number one. As a kid, I liked the Oilers a lot. I liked Wayne Gretzky, and I did like the Blackhawks a lot, probably because of Tony Esposito. But no, now that I'm almost 50 years old now, right? So it's like, I support my home teams. I want the Lions to win. I want the Whitecaps to kick ass. I want the Canucks to win the Cup before I die. But yeah, no, not really. More than anything for me, the sports in my life, like I watch the Lions, I'll watch the Whitecaps, I'll go to the games and stuff. But it's hockey and it's fights. And that keeps me happy, man. I love fights, because when I was younger, I took some jujitsu and judo lessons and stuff. And I just like the art of it. I like that it's kind of a chess match. Once you get to that point, once you get to those levels of like a Poirier and Gaethje rather, those guys are on a different level.
Oh, yeah.
And they're also at that point of like anybody could win that fight. Like, yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Well, we've got UFC 266 coming this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
A couple of title fights. Really excited about that. I've been into combat sports my whole entire life, and mixed martial arts is my favorite sport. And I just can't get enough of it. Who
do you got then?
I do a sport.
Volkanovski or Ortega?
Oh no, I think Volkanovski is going to do it. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think he's the class of that division, and Ortega's good, but I think Volkanovski's better for sure.
He dismantled the zombie to get to Volkanovski, man.
True. Yeah.
And how about what is it, like 17 years later, they're scrapping again,
Oh, Diaz and Lawler. Yeah. I
Lawler,
know.
like
Amazing.
that's
Yeah.
going to be I think that's going to be a fight of the night.
I think everybody's super excited to see Diaz back. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
so long, and he just brings an entertainment factor that's plus 10, and Lawler is just a brawler. So yeah, it's going to be a really fun fight. I think that's getting the most press, actually.
I think so too. Yeah, and of course, let's not forget there's Shevchenko. Is that her name? I think it is, right?
Yeah.
She's fighting. She's defending the belt. I don't think anybody's taken that from her for a while.
No, there's two elite women in UFC, Nunes and Shevchenko, and nobody seems to be able to get anything close to them. So yeah.
And then there's Blades, I think, on the first card. It's Blades and who was the other one?
Rosenstrike he's facing. So yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Do you go out with COVID now? It's a little bit dicey, but do you go out and watch it with buddies, or do you go to people's houses, or you watch it at your house?
I'll go to a buddy's place and watch it. No, I'm still pretty hesitant for going out and shit. I am double vaxxed. But yeah, no, I'm still like testing the waters. I have been out to a couple restaurants. I haven't been in dining. I've always done outdoor stuff. No, I'm a little gun shy, to be honest. I'm ready for it to, be back to somewhat normal so I can start throwing podcast shows again myself. And, but no, I'm not going out to bars to watch that. I'm just going to head to a buddy's place, bring a 6-pack and, grab an Uber and light it up a bit.
Nice. Did COVID almost kill the podcast because of sponsorship? A lot of companies tighten their purse strings. Did it come close to saying couldn't make it?
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really close. Yeah, I probably lost, conservatively, let's say that everybody that jumped off, because there was a ton in April of 2020. Like I lost like 5 sponsors, I think.
Wow.
But let's say that they all stayed on from then. I've probably lost about 55, 60,000 bucks in the last year and a half.
Easy. Wow.
So, thankfully, without BCIT, I would have been scrambling. And I probably would have been a little bit more hungry to find more sponsors and stuff. But yeah, man, it was really close. Like I thought, well, okay, how much money? Because I'm still making, it's good money now. I'm back to, it's fine. Yeah. But at that point, I was like, how much money do I need to make in order to keep this thing rolling? Because of how much time I spend on it. It's taken away from hanging with my wife and my kids and all that, right? So I had to be really aware of like how much time is too much time to spend on this for the amount of money that's rolling in. And it came really, really close.
Wow.
But yeah, thankfully I've got on a few more sponsors in the last 6-8 months, and looks like I'm probably going to get on another sponsor here in the next little while. I talked to Capit, and they're probably jumping on. I probably am, I don't want to be too premature here, but I'm probably going to jump back into the Roxy and start doing some shows there. I've talked to them, maybe the Railway once they're able to get full capacity again. I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, but I was really close, man. Yeah, it was really close for me saying, you know what, it's just, I'm not making enough money. Maybe not completely stopping it. Maybe just like, I'm just going to pause it until, but yeah, COVID kicked the crap out of me, dude.
Brutal. Yeah. I was worried about a lot of people in your situation, and I thought it was going to be tough. So
dude, there were so many people had it way worse than me. Thankfully, I still had the full-time job, but yeah, man, like rough.
How did the BCIT thing come? How did that come about?
Well, they maybe about into between year 2 and 3, they reached out to me and said, hey, any chance you'd want to come and be one of the instructors and kind of just, be a presence and mentor and mark assignments and, just,
cool.
Help the up and comers. And I was like, no, I'm just too busy. Right. And they were like, whoa, okay, well, that's not what we were expecting to hear. Right. And I was like, well, I'm just too busy. Like a podcast is keeping me crazy. I've got a bunch of events that I host and, all that stuff is crazy. And they're like, well, is there any way you can kind of just meet with us and have a coffee and maybe we can work something out. And I was like, okay, cool. I can do that. Like, always take meetings. Like, you never know what's going to come from these meetings. Like, cause I could have just said, you know what, I'm just too busy. Don't worry about it. So I went there and I said, you know, I'm just too busy. I appreciate the offer and the interest. It's really humbling, to be honest, but I'm just too busy. And they're like, well, what would need to happen for you to do it?
Nice.
And I said, well, if I'm done my work with BCIT, marking assignments or having one-on-one sessions with students or whatever, I can't just be idly sitting by. Like, I need to be able to work on my podcast and like my website and like all that stuff. Sure. And they were like, if that's all it takes is you're able to work on your podcast at BCIT, like, you're hired. And so it's 2 days a week on year one. End of year one, they're like, any chance you can come 3 days a week? And I was like, sure, same rules. I still got to be able to do my podcast. They're like, yep. End of year two, they're like, any chance you can come full time in year three? And I was like, yep. And then now this is my 4th year full time.
Wow. That's great. Good for you. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
That's awesome. Yeah. It must be great to see the up and comers and
totally.
And, being able to mentor them and, give them your background and experience. And yeah, that must be just super rewarding.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The only thing I don't like about it is the students that kind of skate by and do the bare minimum, from a guy that's like a grinder, right? Like I hustle, man. I hurry hard. I'm grinding in the corners all the time, right? So that's the only thing I don't like is the ones that just, like it's an assignment that you need to hand in 2 podcasts. Each of them have to have an interview. Well, they hand in 1 with no interview. I was like, well, fuck, man, you lose your job if you do that in the industry. Like, you can't do that in industry. So why are we accepting it at BCIT? So that's the only thing I don't like, which thankfully is not very many students, 10%.
Good.
Yeah.
The Olympics came here to Vancouver in 2010.
Yeah.
One of the best months of my life.
Yeah, that was cool.
How much did you enjoy the Olympics when they came here?
Dude, do you remember where I broadcasted from?
I don't.
I was broadcasting the entire time from the Irish House.
Nice. Wow.
So it was very drunk.
That's one on Nelson and Granville there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Right by the penthouse there.
Yeah, right behind the penthouse. And
it was just insane. So that's where I did my show from every single day during the Olympics, right? So it was yeah, man, those are memories I'll never forget, man. Like, those were crazy memories. Like, Olympians coming through, we had the flame coming through inside, holding the flame and shit. It was so cool, right? So yeah, again, another big highlight for me in radio, for sure. Loved it. I didn't go to any of the events though, did you?
Yeah, I went to so many. It was crazy. I gotta tell you a story. Yeah, I'll tell you when we have more time. I'll tell you the story of my Olympic experience. It was incredible. Yeah, I had a media pass and I went to everything, and it was the time of my life. Yeah, it was really phenomenal. I don't think I slept for like a month, and then I just got so sick the day after the Olympics because I just wore myself right down. But it was a time of my life. It was so fun.
Yeah, such an awesome time in the city, huh?
Yeah. I went to that Irish House on a few occasions. So maybe you were broadcasting before or after whenever I was there. But what a time. I saw that you had an Olympian on the race walker from Richmond. Did you watch do you watch the Olympics every year?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And when they were talking about how he is from Richmond, Evan Dunphy is his name. He placed 3rd, so he got the bronze medal. And as they're talking, I was like, man, what do I recognize that guy, right? So I jump on Twitter and followed him and shot him hey, I'm sure you probably won't even see this, but like, any chance you want to jump on? And he wrote back saying, holy crap, I know you from CFOX. Hell yeah, I'll jump on, right? Cool. So yeah, man, I'm all about that summer and winter. Of course, I like the Winter Olympics better, right? Because hockey and I love those long jumps, the crazy, luging and shit like that. But yeah, man, I love that stuff. Every Summer Olympics, every Winter Olympics, I'm glued, man. I love that stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I see that it's 9 o'clock. I I would love to do this for hours and hours and hours. And you and I could have conversations more and more and more about everything. But
yeah,
I really appreciate your time tonight. This was phenomenal. I want to do it again, someday soon. There'll be tons more to talk about. And I love your podcast. I miss you like crazy during the afternoon and that 6 to 7 Rock Report slot. That life is just not the same since you left, but I'm glad to be able to still hear you doing the podcast. And thanks so much for your time tonight. This was fun.
You're too kind, man. I'm blushing. I don't know if you see that. I'm blushing here. Right on, Darren. I'll see you soon, I'm sure. So shoot me an email and we can do this again for sure.
Okay. Sounds great. Thanks a lot,
bud.
Todd.
All right, man. Have a good night. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, good to talk to you.
All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye for now. Yeah, Bye. You too. Okay. Wow. What a great guest. What a fantastic podcast. As usual, really appreciate you tuning in and really appreciate the support of our partners and sponsors. Anchor has been a great partner and sponsor for Complete Sports Media from the beginning. They've been great at posting on multiple podcast platforms, and they call themselves the easiest place to make a podcast. So just go to anchor.fm and follow the details. Verbero, the hockey equipment and apparel company, they're an industry leader in technology, performance, and value. And the V350 stick is a must-have for anybody in the hockey world. Pampas and Possibilities, they design and sell dried florals, do floral arrangements, and installations. They're designers of handmade, curated pretty things with West Coast vibes at very reasonable prices. And last but not least, Forever Living. This is the aloe vera company. They grow and manufacture aloe vera-based products for health and beauty. Thank you so much for all your support. And thank you to our listeners and our viewers. Appreciate it as always. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.